Hey everyone, welcome back to CryptoCache. Thank you very much for joining me here today. I hope you're having an amazing day. We're going to take a quick look at Pyre. And before we do, we look at Bitcoin, of course, so we know kind of what's going on there. I just want to draw something to your attention so you kind of understand where we're at right now. Because I kind of feel like we're setting up for a dead cat bounce. I hope I'm wrong, but there's a tendency that's happening recently a lot with Bitcoin where it keeps losing this momentum, right? It's kind of continuing itself downwards. Not to say this happened just yet, but when we have these 3 days of bullish momentum, so to speak, that concerns me greatly, just based on the simple fact that there's been nothing really truly to back that up yet, right? So a little bit of concern there, especially with all the news and everything in the market right now. So not trying to worry you. I just want you to be realistic in the sense that could be a possibility for the price to come down. So I just urge you to take some profits if you can, if you're profitable on some of your coins right now, of course. I know a lot of us are in the red from that drop in the first place, but if you invested and bought some dips recently, there's some decent coins right now that are worth taking profits on. And you want to make sure to maybe consider doing so in that regard. Okay, so just a big picture there, heads up. Obviously, every situation is a little different, but let's go ahead and see what's going on with Pyre. Oh, and just before we do, sorry, I just want to let you know I'm not a financial advisor, right? But I do love teaching people how to trade. And if you're new to the channel, of course, I hope you learn a thing or two here today. My goal is to ensure that you learn how to become a better trader and become more self-sufficient. So I have a creating community with that sole purpose in mind, and we're all learning and growing together. It's been a great experience. So check that out on your own time. We're actually transitioning over to a website here soon, away from Patreon, making it much more user friendly, and of course, I would just say a better overall learning experience. Right? It's going to be a great scenario for all of my members, and be happy to get to know you better if you consider joining. All right, so take a look here at Pyre. Let's see what's going on here. Let's look at some of the obvious stuff and work our way down. So on the one-day chart, we can see the 50-day moving average working as a nice, strong support level. That is excellent. That we like to see that the 50 on the 1 day and the 50 on the 4 hour are both very, very strong indicators. And this really helps us kind of understand we're in the right direction. We shouldn't see it come down much lower. If it does, it would only be because Bitcoin drops again to 42, right? Which I still think is a pretty low probability at this point. RSI is up over 50, all good things, right? So we got some really, really good stuff here for Pyre so far on the 1 day candles. That is excellent. 4 hours looking pretty good as well. We had a recent MACD convergence. We can see this where the 12-day exponential moving average intersected with a 26 in an upward fashion. Basically just tells us that the bears have lost control and the bulls have taken control. Okay, so this little nice point there, it's usually considered a buy signal for swing trades. So hypothetically, had you taken entry right here, you would be up somewhere in the range of about 26%. Again, I know hindsight's 20/20, right? But generally speaking, that's the concept. Buying a MACD convergence isn't always foolproof, but it's helpful and usually stronger when you had a pretty significant sell-off recently, right? The price tends to ramp up a lot faster than it normally would based on that sentiment where people are trying to buy the dip and add to their position. So that's kind of what we saw here recently. So let's take a look at the 1 hour chart and see kind of what's going on here. And we can take a look here and you can kind of see pretty obvious that we're above the cloud, right? So traditionally speaking, when you are investing, you want to try to buy in when the bulls are in control, right? You want to join that momentum. You don't want to try to buy the bottom or find the dip, whatever the case is. You don't want to try to chase the bottom. So oftentimes it's much better to get in line when everyone else is moving in the same direction. In this case, that's kind of what's happened. We had our MACD convergence here recently. And right here, if you can see on the 1 hour chart, well, the price is back above the cloud. So typically the price above the cloud is a buy signal to go along. Now there's a couple things you want to remember though, is that the price has to be, there's 3 qualifiers. The price has to be above the cloud. The conversion line, which is this faster moving average, needs to be above the baseline, okay? So yours might be different colors, of course, but the Ichimoku cloud does have different types. I have mine set up as like this orange color and green, just kind of make it easy, or orange and blue either. And then the green is the lagging span, right? That's this guy over here. So when the lagging span intersects with the price action, whenever that might be, that's essentially a sell signal, okay? So ultimately, right now, Pyre is giving us nothing but buy signals, and the likelihood of it continuing to the upside is pretty high based on these metrics alone, okay? Now, granted, we look at the big picture too. We're in pretty good shape as well for the macro, in the sense that the 1 day candlesticks are telling us a good story. We're pretty much on the right side of the tracks there too. So ultimately, I don't see much here that is negative. Let's go ahead and double check on TD sequential and see where we're at. As you can tell, we hit a 9 here recently, where it counted up to a 9, and of course, we got a little reset and then back up to a 5 right now. So it's not terrible. We're at a 5. Hypothetically, we have about 4 hours worth, of bullish momentum left in this little run. Now, granted, most coins have a tendency to just keep going, but for the most part, when you see a 5, you should expect a turnaround in the relative near future. So I'd say we might have one more for our candlesticks worth of bullish momentum before we get some type of retracement or decrease. Another thing to note too is this previous high here where we hit a 9 is kind of marked with these dotted lines. We're right now trying to break that, and that's a good sign. If we can close above that, of course, then that might likely become the new low, and that would essentially be very helpful as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at the big picture and see what kind of best case scenario we're looking at here for Pyre, just considering what we've seen here so far. Okay. Just taking the most recent high, right, and taking the most recent low, we can see with Fibonacci retracement, we have a potential. Again, this is not foolproof by any means, but we do have potential of being right around $82 within the next 2 to 4 weeks. And how I get that information is just based on the simple fact that you look back here from November 11th all the way up to November 27th, it basically had that same type of price action in that amount of time, right? So hypothetically, once we break this all-time high here of right about, what is it? All-time high is $52. We're gonna round up and say 52. Once we break 52, then $82 will be very likely. We just have to get the one-day candlestick to close above 52. So granted, at this point right now, we're still a long ways away from that. I'm not saying this is going to shoot to the moon tomorrow, but if Bitcoin can stabilize and just say close above 52,500, that current resistance level, and get some stability there and start moving and progressing sideways and or upwards, coins like this will have a tendency of taking off and getting back on track. Because this one obviously did very, very well, contrary to how well Bitcoin was doing up until the most recent past. Because obviously you got to keep in mind too, this had overextended itself within reason, because you look at the amount of growth, because this is what one thing is important to understand. Coins become synonymous with Bitcoin's behavior once they've become overextended. Like we saw it with Sandbox recently, KuCoin, a handful of other coins that got to this point where they had to come back down. And once they started coming back down, they aligned themselves with Bitcoin's retracement patterns, right? So this is similar in a sense, but also very different because you can see that it sold off just before Bitcoin started selling off, and it started off selling off pretty heavy. But it hit a nice little bottom here. I don't think we're going to see anything lower than 915. That should be an absolute low. So Pyre definitely looks pretty good. I think we're in the good shape. I do feel within the next couple months, 82 is a very strong likelihood. And if you consider that, from where we're at right now, 31, that's almost 3x, okay? So I think it's pretty safe to presume that Pyre will probably 2x within the next couple of months, just based on how well it's done previously and how well it's doing right now, recovering. Just keep in mind, Bitcoin sells off tomorrow, different story, right? It's going to get stopped out. It'll probably go sideways at the very best. So what we want to hope for is, of course, some stability in Bitcoin over the next couple of weeks to allow a coin like this to progress and continue upwards. Hopefully you found benefit here and that makes perfect sense to you. If so, comment below, let me know. If not, that's okay too. Maybe consider joining my community where we can all learn and grow together. I definitely look forward to getting to know you better. Thanks again for your time. We'll look forward to seeing you next one. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.